Hi, I'm Andy Ridley. I'm the CEO of Citizens of the Great Barrier Reef, and I am the Ask the Expert person for this week. I'm going to ask some questions on footprint. So we'll get right into it. Here's number one. This is from Joe, and the question is, can reducing plastic straws really help reduce emissions? Really good question. Often I think people think plastic straws not really that important, but for me, they're a gateway issue. They're very small, but they're plastic, but it comes back to one single really important thing, which is material use. Now, every year on this planet, out of all the stuff we dig out of the ground for food or for energy or for plastic or for phones or computers or whatever it is, only 9% of it is used more than once. That means that 91% of it goes into the atmosphere, goes into landfill, goes into the oceans once it's been used just once, which is unsustainable. And of course, as we have more and more people on the planet, more and more people going to the middle class over the coming years, all good things, the middle class bit especially, we can't sustain it to an even greater extent. And it's all going to create more emissions. So straws are really important. They're a gateway issue. If you can stop using straws, it kind of shows you what else you can do. So really important. Okay, question number two. Folded up my piece of paper here. Question number two from Kat, and it is, how can I reduce my footprint while traveling to the Great Barrier Reef? Great question. Well, we love people coming to the reef. We want people to come here, fall in love with this extraordinary place, be inspired by it, and be inspired to take more actions and take it home in their hearts. So it's important that you come, but the most important thing is you're flying is offset your flight and do everything else you can to minimize your footprint. So hopefully if you come to Cairns, you won't be seeing any plastic straws, but offset your flight. If you can come by road, which is sort of quite relevant at the moment with lockdowns, that's even better. And of course you can come on a bicycle unless you're in a continent that isn't Australia. So anyway, offset your flights is probably the big thing there. Okay, question number three, which is from Jono. How can we get the global community to act on climate change like they have on the coronavirus? Well, that is a very, very good question. And I think there's kind of a couple of sides to this. One is, what has been amazing during this terrible challenge is that we have proved to ourselves that we have the capacity as a human race to change dramatically when we have to. And climate change really demands that need. We need to change things dramatically. We can't wait another 10 years. And many politicians and many people will say, and I actually started to believe it at one point, I think, will say, it's too hard, we can't do it, you can't change the economy. Well, in 2 months we changed the whole global economy because we had to deal with something that was threatening our lives. Climate change like that, it's an exponential threat. We need to change. So we've got evidence we can change. How would you do it? Well, there's lots of different ways, of course. Shifts to renewables, massive reduction in material use, all these different things. We kind of know how to do this, but it's all about the desire to do it. And I think a really big part of that is going to be the stimulus money that is being spent by governments all over the world. Now, one way of looking at that is we're building out, we know we have to spend it to look after our communities today, but we will be building up debt for tomorrow. The other way of looking looking at this is to go, okay, we have to spend this today, but can we use the money to deal with a problem that is going to be with us beyond the corona pandemic? And I think that's the way we need to look at it. In the GFC, the global financial crisis of 2008, about 16% of all the stimulus money was spent on the green economy. So that's really about things like incentivizing renewables. And it made a massive difference. And it's made a massive difference to the growth of renewables, for example. So imagine this time, much more money, lots of people needing work, lots of reshoring of jobs, a lot of rethinking to be done about our reliance on other countries. So I think there's a big opportunity there. If you really want to know a bit more about this, go to my LinkedIn profile and there's an article there called Transformation is Possible. It's a bit long. If you need to get some sleep, give it a read. It'll probably achieve that for you. Okay, next question is from Barney. This is from Barney Swan. Hello, Barney, a friend of mine. And it is classically complicated, Barney. how can we accelerate net positive emissions, a net positive emissions culture from boating and tourism on the Great Barrier Reef? Well, it's a complicated question, but a good question. I think the answer to that is there are ways in which we can take steps. And as you and I both know, there is a journey here. We need to get to net zero as quickly as we can. That means that we're offsetting what we can't stop in terms of emissions. And then we need to be building solutions to get to zero. So we actually have no emissions. And ideally beyond that, we start sucking carbon out of the air. So there are lots of ways to think about that. One is the more mangrove swamps we plant, the more trees we plant, the more that we're capturing carbon, the more we can offset the carbon that we do emit already. The more technology kicks in with different engines on boats, with more electrification, with more electric cars, with better land practice, better agriculture practice, the more emissions we're able to reduce. And of course, the complete reliance on renewables over old fossil fuels is all going to be part of that mixture. It's a journey. First target, net zero. We can all get there very quickly. I think there's some conversations about setting a net zero target by 2030 for this region, and I think that would be good. I'm sure we would smash it. Okay, last question is from Susan, and it is, what difference can I really make as an individual? We're so behind our emissions targets globally. Do you really think we can turn things around in time to save our reefs? Well, that's a very poignant question. I think prior to the corona pandemic, I wasn't sure. But I think if one thing the corona pandemic has taught us, it is that humans have the capacity to do extraordinary things if they have to move heaven and earth if they have to. And that's what we need to do in order to deal with climate change and to keep temperatures under 1.5 degrees increase against pre-industrial levels. If we had the same desire and drive as we've had over dealing with the corona pandemic, we could deal with climate change in a decade. And so, it's up to us. It's up to us as voters. It's up to us as individuals. It's up to the policies that governments set. It's up to us to choose with every decision, of everything that we buy, every product that we purchase, the food we eat, etc., etc. So yes, I think it is possible, and maybe it's more possible than it was 6 months ago. All right, thanks a lot for listening. Cheers.